My previous book, The Riddle of Desire, was a biography of karma, the third goal of desire and pleasure. And finally, this book, although a memoir, has turned out to be about the fourth aim of moksha, offering an all natural, non religious, non transcendental view of freedom. Each volume in the quartet on the aims of life has investigated a different source of human happiness. I have concluded, much like Aristotle, that the pursuit of multiple goals is far better, more human, and less dangerous than chasing a single paramount goal. The goals are sometimes in conflict. Dharma, for example, is a duty to another, while karma is a duty to oneself. A successful life needs to find a balance between them. We need to reach a state of equanimity in this regard in order to live a harmonious life. This book is thus a memoir, not an autobiography. A memoir is a collection of memories reflecting on specific themes, touchstone moments, turning points in one's life, while providing an intimate narrative about public and private events that occurred along the way. An autobiography is simply the story of a life presenting the facts in a chronological manner from the beginning to the end. What do I have in common with the 2.5-year-old child whose photograph my mother used to keep adoringly on her mantelpiece? Nothing, except that I happen to be the same person. I was born in Lyallpur, Punjab during World War II when Hitler, Churchill, and Hirohito were bashing everyone about. How to remember the daft things I said at 4 when I can't even remember what I said yesterday? Fortunately, my mother kept a diary, a habit she'd picked up during her time in Candid College, Lahore. The first reference to me occurs soon after I was born. This is a restless baby. By age 2, I have become a difficult child. By 4, she is calling me a troublemaker. One day I discovered that I could run, and I have been running ever since. It was the happiest of childhoods, until the partition of India, when our world collapsed. The lunacy of partition, people ready to kill cheerfully in the name of their God, initiated me early into the modern idea of the absurd. Just as in living my life I had to choose which path to take, so in reliving it, I have had to select memories from my life, painfully aware of what I've left out. When you select, the result is a bit of invention, and it raises the question of truth. Hence, they say, there's little difference between fiction and non-fiction, except that fiction has to make sense. Moreover, one's memory tends to flatter. One is inclined to choose the interesting rather than the boring bits. Since no one wants to write a boring book, this risks making your life more interesting than it was. So, it is best to include the bad and the good. There is no such thing as clean, unalloyed truth. There are also unreliable memories. In the end, no one can ever be sure about what really happened. The other problem I struggled with was how much to focus on my family. Clearly, my parents were important influences and they have got their due. So has my sister, whose tragic life has left me with scars. My wife, however, is a private person who was extremely wary of this project. In deference to her, I have tried to keep much of our conjugal life private. She appears, thus, to be a shadowy figure at times, except in the early scenes when we met, got married, and began our life together. I have adopted the same reticence when it comes to our children. Discretion has made me avoid using names in some cases. In other instances, I have actually changed the name to protect the person. Justice also demands that some things not be told. Every generation is happy to celebrate its victories but glosses over its failures. A memoir can help make amends. The failures of my generation are many. We have still not come to terms with India's partition, failing to bring to closure the ghastliest event of our lives. Too many of us stepped unthinkingly into the shoes of the departing white sahibs at independence and didn't bother to reform colonial institutions or fashion a new modernity truer to the spirit of a free nation. We lost our economic freedom when we adopted Fabian socialism. It turned into an ugly license permit inspector Raj, which persisted for too long, thereby sacrificing 2 generations to lost opportunities. We also adopted a thoughtless form of secularism, refusing to have an honest conversation with tradition. This has paved the way for the regrettable rise of Hindu nationalism. Some of these failures could have been mitigated had we succeeded in giving a decent education.